I'm really excited to have you here, George. We've been talking back and forth about this new part of writing that I think is really huge.
Mm.
And it's great to like kind of take off the handcuffs and get really into it. But
Yeah.
for other people who haven't met you, George
Sure.
is many things, but he's a successful creator, entrepreneur, and focus for what I'm always talking about is he's actually the writing teacher for that course that I've been mentioning over and over. What was the name of it again?
It is now the YouTube script writing playbook, but it has had many guises over the years, and it will probably change again. But right now, words to the effect of the YouTube script writing playbook.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love the name too. And also, our first person who graduated from Hogwarts.
Am I really the first? My goodness. Yeah, well, we all do over here. So I'm thrilled to be representing that particular contingent of the world.
I had a man from Tullamore, and he was not admitted.
Okay. What? This is maybe derailing it already, but what house am I? What house are you?
Let's see, one moment.
Oh, my goodness. I am unbelievably curious. Okay.
I am obviously Gryffindor.
Yeah, love it. That makes sense. I was like, he's definitely getting a prop of some description. Oh, okay. Well, you know what? We are multifaceted people. You're a bit of everything.
Well, that's a cube. So who are you?
I mean, no one wants to be that one. By that one, I mean the boring one. I'd rather be evil than boring, I think, weirdly. And I think that's not uncommon. I guess so, but does that feel like, are you a bit of a pick-me if you say I'm Ravenclaw? I think I'm probably a Gryffindor as well, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, it is a bit, everyone's doing it, but being sincere about who you are, that's to be the power, man.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm glad to be housed with you.
So that's a sense of who George is as a person real quick. And most importantly, my sorry attempt to start things off with some form of a joke, crash or burn. It helped so much. Because what we've been going back is, it turns out that humor is this untapped, massive power that not for entertainment, because my focus, is always on functional things. If you're an entrepreneur or an executive or professional, the communication skills you need to actually get things done. And humor is turning out to be the magic weapon in that field. From our conversations, I didn't realize it, and now it keeps on creeping out more and more. And a bit of a rehash. I was recently talking online with Kevin Espiritu from Epic Gardening. And literally, the only reason he's speaking to me is because of some jokes I made with him. And I just cracked like, dude, you are very successful. Just tell me what sort of improv comedy you did. And how did you know? Like every single person who has succeeded at this. It's this undercover secret, I think.
That really, that kind of, that was amazing. I think the more you've been speaking about this recently, you're making me think about it a lot more. And, the Kevin thing in of itself is just really interesting. And as soon as you said that to me, I was like, yes, that makes sense. There's something about his aura on camera and the way he speaks and communicates that definitely has that edge. But yeah, the amount that you've, I guess for like the first few times you were asking me about humor related stuff, I was kind of like, why does he want to know? Like, I guess this is stuff that I love talking about and it's fun for me to talk about. But how does this kind of relate to a broader context here? And like, is this actually broadly more useful? And I think you're helping me see where it is and how it is more useful. And also, I'm going to say that despite trying to light control my room, the sun has gone in because, England, and I feel like I've sort of gone into night mode. Would you like me to move this light round at all? Or can you still kind of see me well enough?
I think you look great.
Okay. We'll go with like the moody half and then the light and the shade, as it were. Anyway, sorry to derail us again.
So this is what makes, I think this is going to be a really good, just because of who we are as people. George has a formal background in comedy. And we can get into that more later, but that's just something to know. He came from an opposite end from me. He came from a humanities degree. I think you studied history, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And you formally studied, scripted comedy and improv comedy. You've performed at Fringe Fest.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So a whole lot of this. And I'm coming from the exact opposite side where I was a musician for a while, but my main lifestyle has been STEM. Is that phrase used over in the UK?
I don't think so. What was it? Stamp?
STEM, science, technology, engineering, and
Ah.
I don't even care what the M stands for.
Oh, STEM. Sorry, yes, STEM. I thought you said stamp. I was like, yeah. No, yes, we do. We do use that as well. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of hurdles that people like me have had to
Mm.
overcome, which were
Yeah.
kind of invisible for someone who started off with a humanities and comedy degree. So it's
Mm.
great because we're going to get your expertise on this. And I can bring in some of those questions might not be even obvious to ask for you that would bridge other people over to having the superpower that you currently possess.
Sure. Well, you know what? I was thrilled to find out I had one. That is very good news, and I would love to unpack it. And especially, yeah, from you, like you say, coming from that other side of things, I certainly know a lot of my friends who are from a more traditional STEM background just like, don't have or haven't had that same curiosity about creative stuff. And I don't know if that maybe that's just a exception rather than the rule, but like I feel I'm curious on your side. Is it unusual for someone with your kind of formal training and your background to be thinking in the way that you're thinking and curious about the things you're curious about, or am I just hugely stereotyping?
No, it's exactly why I want to explore this. I've become a hybrid. I've gone from an incredibly just pure nerd, nothing else. I can, with no exaggeration, say my social skills were terrible. I think we don't need to dive in how bad, but just trust me. And the fact that I got curious about these and put my money where the mouth is, now I'm kind of between each. And so I kind of feel obligated. I should bridge these gaps for people while I still end this side.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good point. Yeah. Before you lose it, before you become too good, too funny, too smart.
It's a real thing. Anyone who gets great at something, you start to forget what it was like to not know it. And with writing, I've seen that be the top of the list. You'll explain something, and within seconds, it goes from, oh my God, this is the hardest thing I've ever heard. How could it possibly solve? To give me the answer to, I can't understand why anyone ever had a problem with this. Literally in seconds.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah.
So to give it a little box, because I obviously like to get into everything, and this is top of the tier of everything connects to everything else. So our focus today will be about what it's done for you in your life, and maybe extrapolate what other people could get from it. So a little bit of the why. So the question we're going to try to answer in today's chat is, where do you think your life would be if you hadn't studied comedy?
Ooh, interesting. So one quick distinction out the gate is that I should say I was actually I was paying to study history, and that is the only thing that I have, I guess, a qualification in. Whereas the comedy stuff was actually what I spent my time doing while I was at university. That is like that feels more like what I was there to do. But a large amount of it has just been like it's just been good fortune finding a comedy partner, finding someone I love to work with and to write with and to perform with, that we just bounced off each other really well, and then just falling completely into that world. And then over time, I guess formalizing that a bit more with, thinking, oh, okay, I'm enjoying doing improv and I get to be in this improv troupe, but now I kind of want to know what the experts say about it, and like, how can I connect the things that I have started doing accidentally to a formal principle that may exist, so I can hone it and refine it and that kind of thing. So while I've read books on, some books on comedy, it's mostly been a process of just like practicing and doing things and kind of listening to audience feedback, literally in terms of, do they laugh or do they not laugh? Okay, I need to change my approach, or that was good, I will do that again. So that's just a quick caveat, is like, I don't want to claim that I've not done a comedy degree or like a comedy course in that way, but I did spend more time doing comedy than I did doing history. But without,
It'll be perfect.
Sure, yeah. But without, so your question was like, what if I hadn't done that, if I didn't have that?
That's the seed to put in your head. The concrete question to give us like a little box we can work in a sane amount of time is, let's start off with, what has it done for you that you expected or were surprised by in your creative work? I know you have started off, you've done some YouTube channel, you've actually worked for other creators, and right now your success is teaching other people writing and doing consulting and writing. All of those are creative side areas.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So I suppose expected stuff. I've become more confident in all walks of life. Like even something like this. I think
Mhm.
getting the reps in, talking in front of a crowd in any capacity, but particularly when you are uh, unequivocally trying to make somebody laugh, and the risk is if they don't, then it's quite obvious that you have failed, and everyone in the room knows that was him trying to be funny and it didn't work, and we're all aware of it. So
And you'll do it again.
and you still do it again, exactly. But going through that process and doing the reps of that, it just makes you more confident in. I guess it changes the scale of like what your body and your brain can cope with in terms of feelings. And so then doing something like this, like what could be a nerve wracking podcast interview, or even just a chat with someone that is not like my partner or a really like someone I've known for 20 years.
Mm,
This conversation, in theory, could be nerve wracking,
mm.
but it isn't. Which is also partly because you're an incredibly gracious host and you've made me feel very comfortable. But yeah, so that's the one side of things, the obvious stuff, the confidence. But then I think, honestly, the unexpected stuff, I've only just started to connect up because of the questions you've been asking and what we've been speaking about over the last few weeks and well, last few months, really. In that I guess I never thought of how those skills that were developed over those years where I was like really doing comedy a lot, and I'm not doing it so much these days in the kind of strict get up on stage and tell jokes kind of fashion. It's coming up in terms of my business, in terms of things that you've pointed out, like how it feels to be in a community that's run by me is in some way influenced by the kind of persona that I give off, which I think is mostly me.
Sets,
But sorry.
sets the tone.
Sure, exactly. And then I think probably across my whole business in terms of my newsletter, how I write that, and how I try to come across, even in terms of my customer service, in terms of how I deal with refund requests and your approach to like, do you want to be the kind of person who's like, if you buy my thing, there are these 8 or 9 loopholes that I've put in place to really make it difficult for you to get a refund, and you have to prove that you've done XYZ things, and only if you achieve all of that stuff will I give you your money back. Whereas I prefer, like, my whole vibe, what I prefer to be, I guess, is someone who's just kind of like, I'm making this stuff up. If you don't like the thing, just tell me. I'll trust you, and I'll give you your money back. Which is
Yeah.
maybe a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But I think it's all influenced by the public speaking, the confidence, the comedy, how you try to come across in general to an audience, whether that's an audience of people who should be laughing or people who you want to buy from you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think what I've been just discovering is those two are the same audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's obvious, like, oh, we want to make someone laugh, and that's this group of people. But the people
Mm-hmm.
that you want to buy for you or be happy in your community or even have a good impression of you after they got a refund, they're the same people, the same tool set.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, no, agreed. And again, you're making me more aware of this. So this is interesting for my mind.
I kind of want to go through 3 different subsets of your skills.
Okay.
Specifically, first, let's start off with your main weapon that we see you making money off right now is your writing skills. Do you feel that your comedy training and background influenced your style of writing? Because I have a hunch on this.
Interesting. Yes, I think so. So there was a very interesting thing that started to happen back when I first got into this industry, which was when I got hired by a guy called Ali Abdaal, who is some of you may your listeners may have heard of him, some may not, but like a big productivity influencer, now a New York Times bestselling author. And I was hired as one of 4 writers at the time in 2021, I think, and we all had basically the same responsibility, which was to come in every week, pitch some ideas. Ali would say yes, yes, no, no, yes, no, and then we'd go away and write those ideas. And there was a definite kind of skew in terms of how, like, where we all went. And so a friend of mine, Gwilym, who is my podcast co-host, one of my podcast co-hosts,
Cool name, by the way.
great name, a lovely Welshman. He kind of, his thing ended up often being like the kind of tech reviews, like Apple Watch. It would be the latest iPad, Kindle, headphones, like that kind of thing. That was just his way. And then there were, but for me, there was this like real draw towards doing funnier stuff. So I wanted to do a kind of, I think Ali had done a kind of, it was like a parody morning routine type thing where just taking to the extreme everything you'd imagine a productivity nerd would do. And I had which was, and he already made one and it was really fun. But I had a kind of, that kind of format of script. I wanted to do more of that kind of thing. And so I naturally just ended up pushing more ideas like that. A lot of them did not get made because Ali was not too fussed, or at first he was fussed and then he was like, nah, this isn't like, yeah, it just didn't happen, which was a shame. But I've noticed that ever since, like then moving into doing this kind of as a freelance, as it was at one point, a freelance gig, I ended up I liked to work for people who were naturally quite funny. And so I worked with a guy called Justin Moore, Creator Wizard, who's like a sponsorship king, we'll call him that. And his stuff is already quite gregarious and quite fun, but I just loved working with him because it was such an opportunity to lean into that comedic voice, throw extra jokes in where possible. There's a video on Ed Lawrence's channel back. I wrote a few videos for him back when he first launched what's now his main channel, but was his second channel. And there's like a very specific joke in there about a very specific sofa company in the UK, which it's so fun to watch back a video that you wrote on and think that joke is so specific. I know that would not have been in it. Like I'm ultimately sure a replaceable asset. They can find another writer, but the script looks exactly like this because I did that joke. Yeah, I would always feel compelled to lean into that style of things. And so, yeah, I think it's inevitably affected the writing for sure.
What I wanted to ask about is you felt you were drawn to work with people and creators who were funny. Is that unique to you because you have a comedy background, or do you feel that everyone is drawn to that?
Yes, it's a good question, I suppose. I probably don't know, but I have a suspicion that not everyone is. And I think this is something that I know you notice it in conversation as well. And like, this is where all these things connect from what you've been saying, where I'm like, oh yeah, I noticed this pattern, not only when I'm writing scripts and noticing how other people write scripts, but also how other people tell anecdotes and how people talk to each other, is that I can't help but want to default to some sort of humoristic thing. And I'm sure there is something in there that is to do with a lack of confidence that is so being masked by comedy that I don't even notice it anymore. The kind of self-deprecating Brit thing, I think I definitely have that. But I do notice it sometimes where even in like email communication, I am just desperate to keep the tone kind of lighthearted. And then you'll get back an email from someone that's just like, thanks. No emoji.
So demoralizing.
It is. Not that they have to have an emoji or an exclamation mark or whatever, but I just feel that not everybody has that desire to be like that all the time. And I'll notice it in conversation as well. I just feel the most comfortable when I'm able to try and make people laugh in some way. That's how I feel like I get more comfortable and I can make other people comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my strong belief is maybe not everyone can do it or reacts like you're explaining, but I believe that the people who aren't really humorous are even more drawn to those people than you are. I come from a background where it's all science nerds and most of us don't really we're not good at getting along with people. We can't say that much. We don't get that many jokes. And if there's somebody who's outgoing, we all are drawn to them. If there's one person who has a good sense of humor and walks in, it's like oxygen has entered the room.
Yeah.
So this is even more powerful than you might be appreciating, where if you just think about how many parts of their businesses that has influenced, where they have more writers applying to work with them so they can choose the best of that group. Obviously, more clients are going to want to work with them. I think it just gets baked into a ton of parts that become invisible.
I think you're right.
And more of a tangible thing is we talk about, is this useful for just having fun? You know, you say that email and you get a really deadpan response.
Yeah.
But the very first principles of making a good impression, you know, Charlie Hooper talks a lot of this in his program that he sells. There's a lot of things and there's 7 more days after this. But number one is you have to make someone feel that you're fun. If you screw up a joke, they at least have the look in their eyes of, okay, you're trying to be fun. So that'll eliminate, you're not trying to steal something from me.
Yeah.
You're actually trying to give something to me. And that just
Mm.
changes the tone of everything else.
Yeah, you're so right. Yeah, the being fun thing, I totally get, and also then the you're not trying to steal something. That really resonated with me, particularly in terms of it's like being gracious in conversation, being gracious in any kind of interaction where you're not determined to get the biggest laugh in this interaction. It's kind of like the conversation becomes a team sport where you're trying to help the other person win as well. And whether that's through, even if it does mean like, making your enjoyment of something they said visibly shown a little bit more, even if it's like, okay, fine, by myself in a cold room, I might not have guffawed at what they just said. They just said something that amused me, and so like I want to reciprocate their effort to do that by laughing. I think I don't know, it comes down to just like general politeness, I suppose. But yes, that idea of I'm not here to try and steal the floor from you. We're here working together to have a mutually enjoyable interaction.
I didn't think about that part. It definitely made me feel, okay, I like this person, but I never realized you had that instant feel of a team that were kind of building together.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. At least that's how I think about it. Like, I guess you can feel it when someone, even if you're the one who's just done a joke in an interaction, there will be some people who will accept that, and maybe they'll like kind of build on it, and the interaction can continue. Or there'll be some people who kind of just try and do your joke, but like 5% better or different, or something that's like, no, that wasn't the killer line. I've got the killer line. And that's, I don't like those interactions. And I try not to be the person in those interactions doing that. I guess it's a subtle difference, but it's like, are you building on the conversation, or are you trying to like snipe the winning shot right at the end? Do you know what I mean?
That's one of the things in the segment where I want to talk someday about how to do this well. That's one of the big questions I have in my mind.
Yeah.
But focusing on just what it can do for you for right now, my big theory for your writing skills is I came from a different area and I really enjoyed your program the most because we'll start where I came from. I start from STEM. It's how to explain everything with absolutely no flaws, no gaps. It's incredibly verbose, very long. I also have Irish blood, which means I will tell you everything related to the topic because I thought it was really cool, even if it doesn't matter to you.
Yeah.
And that does not work in business. That does not work in comedy. And your style of writing, it's aimed for YouTube because it has to be very concise, very brief. And comedy, YouTube, those are the reasons you did it. But that made it the lifeblood that I was looking for. I studied a lot of different writing styles before. And I was like, this is making things actually worse. And your style, which I believe was influenced by your comedy background to be so concise, was this is what every professional freaking needs.
I mean, great if they do. Feel free to give me money in return for my knowledge. Yeah, no, for sure. Like I hadn't thought of it in this way, but I think you're right. And whatever it is, brevity is the something of wit or something like that. Words to that effect. You can see I'm well read on the subject. And that's definitely it. I think that's kind of what YouTube comes down to. I was always thinking of it in terms of, well, what you're fighting with here is the audience's attention span. But actually, well, that is, true to some extent. I suppose it's also like the like you say, the kind of brevity that's required in comedy, figuring out the stuff that isn't relevant to the story that you're trying to tell is much the same when it comes to YouTube, and you're trying to respect the audience's time.
If I do a stand-up meeting with my team, the second I stand up, immediately they are sick of me and want to get out of there. So
right,
if a joke at the beginning buys me another 5 minutes of their attention, that's just as brutal of a situation as a YouTube video where people can click off. If you're doing a sales pitch, all these other places, it's really astonishing how much this applies to the other area. And I wonder if instead of, doing a history degree and more importantly, doing your comedy work in college, if you had been a mechanical engineer, I wonder if you would have half the ability of concise writing that you already have right now.
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose like taking it all the way back to actually studying, the kind of the final task of any essay that was being submitted was, well, this is too long. I feel like this is as condensed as I can make it, and yet I've got to save another 500 words somewhere. Where is that going to be? And it's remarkable that you'd always find it from somewhere. And I have that exact thing now when I log into the community and someone like you or one of the other students has shared a hook that they're working on or a script that they're working on. Every single time, the first time I read it, I think, oh, I can't possibly make this any more concise. This is perfect. How proud I am of my student. They've done incredibly well and they've written the perfect hook. And I had that with the hook I know you were commenting on yesterday and that I replied to this morning. First time reading it, I was like, damn, that's really good. Also, Ethan's already made the only point that in hindsight, I'm like, yes, of course, that's a brilliant point from Ethan. I have nothing else that I can say. And yet...
Tell me more.
Yeah. But then, yeah, you spend more time looking at it and you figure out, oh, okay, no, and like these, whatever it is, from just the repetitions, from the years of practice in different arenas, be it degree, comedy, whatever, you read it and you read it and you read it, and eventually something clicks and you're like, oh no, actually, that sentence could go. They don't need that. They're doubling up on something they've said, or they could get more momentum. They could start in the action, like whatever it is. And it just comes. And I think that the repetition of the outcome and realizing that, no, every time I start a task like this, I feel like this, and I'm convinced I can't make it any more brief. And yet every time I felt like that, I know 10 minutes later, I've figured it out. And I think that gives you confidence in your ability to make those transformations every single time.
It's a bit like the 4-minute mile. Because you know it can be done, you're a lot more able to do it. But this is stark hearing me talk about it. This is the first time in my life I've heard anyone talking about at school having to cut words. Every class I've been in, every classmate I had, we're always stressing about how to add more words to make it long enough.
Got it.
I think this is a really night and day thing where that gave us so many bad habits that don't work in the real world. It doesn't work in the productivity world. It only works in the science world. And now your style is just completely fixing that.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder what that is. Maybe that's just a person-to-person thing. And certainly some essays, I would think, oh my goodness, I've got 3 authors in my bibliography that's supposed to have like 20. I need to add more words to it. But I think for me, I don't know, like my mum, she's a great storyteller, but she's also, and she's got Irish blood. She will include every detail to the point where occasionally we'll have to be like, wait, what was the hook again? Like what was the thing we were going to learn in this story? And I think I have that as well. And I probably have it in some of these answers here. Like if I were to modify the transcript of this conversation, there would be loads of bits that I would think, oh no, I repeated myself, or I could have trimmed that. So yeah, for me, writing, I always usually end up with too much and have to shrink it down.
Well, this is a good transition then to the speaking skills, how it's applied for you there, what you are surprised, what you expected, because I've noticed my ramblingness is much tighter now because from working with your style, I have a general idea of where it needs to go, that it becomes more of a shortcut. And if I'm taking detours, it's more of a voluntary detour instead of I can't help myself.
Yes, got it. Okay. Well, that's good to know.
So have you seen how it's affect the way you speak compared to other people? Because there's a couple of parts I'm going to bring up if you haven't.
Interesting. I'm very intrigued to hear what you have to say. The only thing I can think of most recently is that I definitely include conscious setups, like in what we would talk about with script writing. You kind of break the script up into little chunks, and like every chunk has its own payoff, which you have to set up at the start of each chunk or segment, as we call it. And I definitely notice in storytelling, in giving advice, like I was doing a kind of asynchronous channel review for somebody a couple of days ago, and I would notice that I'd move on to a particular retention graph, and I'd say something like, there are going to be 2 major problems we're going to talk about with this retention graph. The first of them is the easiest to fix. And then I'm like, hang on, I said that exactly like I was writing a YouTube script where I would, talk in that way. So it definitely influences my speech in that regard. And I'll find it in anecdotal, storytelling again. I'll kind of try and tee up the story without like using the keyword that gives away what the point is. And maybe I did that before, I don't know, but I think that's been exacerbated by the YouTube script writing stuff. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what you had.
So this isn't just your writing, this is your comedy writing. One of the things I got stuck so much on is how long it takes to write just making modules in the course I was creating. And if you can do it instead of word for word, you can do bullet points and freeform off that, you can get so much more valuable education out per week than others. I was watching through, and one, you can do that a lot better because if you've been doing improv or even script, like you must have had to break it down to bullet points somehow to deliver that. But the best example I saw is I was going through your verse version of the course, and there's one part where you're talking about a guy hatching fish from caviar.
Yes.
And you're cringing and stumbling over the concept of fish semen. And the fact that you're able to laugh at it, make a joke, and keep rolling along in your bullet points without having to even stop and do a retake.
Okay.
It made the experience better while also probably saving you an hour of your workday.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that part. I was in a kind of fugue state recording the course the first time around. But yeah, you're right. I think, and I don't think I even watched it, but I'm sure there is a Charlie Halpert video where the thumbnail was Tom Holland, and the title was something like how to. It was something about how to still seem confident even when you screw up, or like when you say something awkward, or how to be confident even when you're embarrassing, or something like that.
Yeah.
Again, I never watched it, but I that concept kind of stuck in my mind. Maybe I must have watched at least half of it, because I think it was something about the fact that if something awkward or weird happens, the most awkward thing you can do is collectively like not acknowledge it, you as the speaker and everyone else. Like I was saying at the start, when the audience doesn't laugh at a joke that you've just told, and everyone knows that that's something you were trying to make them laugh, the best thing to do, and what I've had to do more times than I would like to count, is just lean into it and just acknowledge it, because we all know what just happened. And so that's a lot of what comedy is that kind of release of tension, and everyone feels that tension when the awkwardness builds up. And so just like pop the balloon for them. Just, it'll be something as simple as, well, we'll keep workshopping that one. And that just that's such a default, and it works quite well because people think, okay, cool. They understood that didn't go so well. Yes, I've gone off on a complete tangent. I can't remember where we started, but that's my point.
It was very effective that way, and superiorly effective because you had that comedy style. During Ultra Speaking, another one of the training I did, we covered recovering from weird things, but it's all just trying to make them seem normal and keep rolling. The style you did, it would be appropriate in a workplace. It wasn't just, let's turn the whole thing into a comedy spot right now. But that comedy improv skill made it more memorable, more enjoyable. And what I think is underappreciated is it reset everyone's attention budget. Instead of not burning that, people are like, oh, I feel like I'm ready to start over if you had just walked in the room. What more do you got for me, George? I'm awake again.
Interesting. I love that phrase, resetting their attention budget. That's fantastic. I think, I've never thought of it in that way. I love that.
Okay, there's two last points I want to try and squeeze in.
Yeah.
The next is, I think it's the biggest, so we're saving it for last, is the mindset needed for entrepreneurship that you naturally develop from working with your humor. The thing that I struggle, probably everyone does, is making small pots. You familiar with that concept?
I don't know if I am.
There's that story. The professor, he teaches pottery, and he has two groups of students, and he says, you guys just spend the whole semester, make one great pot. That's all you need to do. And the other group, he says, I don't care, make garbage, just make as many as possible. And by the end of the semester, the people making the small pots as fast as possible are making masterpieces better than the masterpiece class. And that's not even the best part, is that tomorrow they can make another one. But these guys would need another 3 months.
Yeah.
So for creative work, this is something I've had to break, because everything in STEM is, if you get it wrong once, people die.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I can imagine.
And this is the smaller things you get out, the faster you learn, the better you're going to get, and the more you can contribute to people. And humor and that training, I have a hunch that's been a big influence on your ability to put things out when they're not flawless, or to take that risk. I remember one point you talking about having to perform every week on a Wednesday, no matter what.
Yes. Yeah. So it was either I'd be in the show, or I would, when I was it was like the comedy society at my university, variously took on more responsibility with that. And by the third year was the chair, not to boast too much about my credentials, but was the chair of York Comedy Sock, which is not one you will have heard of because it is not the one from Cambridge. But in any case,
I haven't even heard of Cambridge.
Sorry?
I haven't even heard of Cambridge. I'm in Tennessee.
Really? Oh, interesting. Okay. They had like Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie and Emma Thompson and loads of like famous Brits have been in it, and probably not Brits. But anyway, but yes, whether I was in it or I was facilitating it in some way, whether that might have been, I can't think of the word. The only word I can think of is divesting responsibility between different people, other kind of like subheads of the society, or it would be helping the head of writers make sure, who was also my comedy partner, making sure that the script was ready for the show and whatever else in some way, yes, was a part of making sure something happened every Wednesday and people would be there waiting to pay their £2 to get in. So we had to have a show ready, and that certainly helped. But beyond that, every single week we had a writer's workshop, which again, my friend, he ran those workshops, and we would just bring a sketch every single week, a new sketch to that workshop. We would read it out as a group, and we would get feedback on it. And then the next week we would come back with another one. And I think, it detached. There was some amount of detachment from the need to make every single one perfect. And the point was, am I showing up? Am I practicing? What am I learning? Let's keep going. Maybe these sketches won't make it into a show, but it doesn't matter. It was still a valuable thing.
There must have been some times when you showed up and you're just, I do not feel good about this one, but this is what I have today.
Yeah, for sure. And the same with improv. There were some days where you would show up, and I think lack of sleep was a big one. I guess at university, college, you just don't always sleep so good. And for me, that really affected how I felt before an improv show. And I think you knew when your brain had sort of clicked into this mode where you were just ready to do it. But still, you had to go out there, and it's imprinted on my mind the moments before running out on stage, especially in my final year where I was running the improv troupe. So I had to kind of introduce it. I was the kind of front man for the show. We'd be behind the curtains, and the music would start playing, and it would kind of like pump up, and then the announcer would say something over the speaker, and you're just like sat there just breathing, just thinking in like 5 seconds I'm going to be out there, in 4 seconds I'm going to be out there, and then you just have to do it. But I think even when you're not feeling great, my mind would shift into another state where I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm going to be the one just popping absolute zingers every 5 seconds tonight. I think I need to work as more of a facilitator in these scenes and make sure that they maybe make more structural sense. And I'm thinking about how we can progress the story on, rather than thinking, how can I be really quippy in the next 5 seconds, So there's certainly a degree of adaptability. And if you're not totally on it, like, you can still contribute and you can still gain something from it. Even if you're not 100%.
The way you describe that is so completely how other people who have succeeded in entrepreneurship talk about it. I'm here as a student, I'm trying to get my first one off the ground. And my thing is just, how do you get over the terror of putting out something that you're not confident with, or you don't think it's that good? And even when we're directly asking you about it, you glaze over it so fast. Like, yeah, sure, there were times when I looked at it and I didn't like it. But the real thing was organizing the people and trying to be the front man. And I was that isn't even on my radar for me, the hardest thing. But when I talk to other people who succeeded, that's how they talk too. Like, yeah, it's the surfing the wave and going with all the chaos and just keep riding it. And they're just completely comfortable with, maybe something's not great today. That's completely okay. I haven't even had a chance to worry about that. It's so far the rearview mirror for me now.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Well, I want to wrap up with this today, since where we're at in time. Sure. And the question to leave for in the future is, I would love to talk in the future, like how this has concretely affected your business side and what it could possibly do for others. And to put that in a question form, my favorite part that I see you using your business is your attitude of make it up as I go, and don't have too serious of an attitude about it. I think that unlocks so many critical entrepreneurial things that go downstream from that. And think about where your business would be, maybe, if you didn't have that attitude toward it. We can talk about that next time.
That sounds great. I will ask ChatGPT where my business would have been at if I could send it my website, be like, here's what I do. Tell me what would have happened if I was a more serious guy in the last 3 years.
Yes.
But also I will think about it using my human brain. That sounds really cool. Let's do it.
It's a little bit of a Charles Dickens special.
Yes, love it.
All right, cool. Well, great. This has been great. I love talking with you, George.
Thank you so much, Ethan. It's been great, as I knew it would be. And see you in the next one.
Go Gryffindor.